Okay, well, welcome back. Last day, you can maybe tell from my face, I am not feeling exactly A plus. So we're going to try to be efficient today. But before we get into the content for today, do you have any questions about yesterday? So yesterday we covered lessons 4 and 5. So that was about econ and land use. And today we're going to be covering 6 through 8. So a little bit more for lessons, but it's less about gameplay today.
I guess I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do kids have issues with the game, like between the teacher and like me coming into a classroom? Are there many glitches or issues with kind of pulling the game component out and making it work?
That's a really good question. That has gotten significantly better in recent years. If you would have asked me that 5 years ago, I would have said yes. But recently, not nearly as much. Since schools are now set up so where a lot of them are one-to-one, they'll have their own laptop anyway. That has made it a lot easier. They already know what kind of internet connections they need to have. They do that kind of stuff fairly regularly.
Okay,
but if
thanks.
you're going to be in a school that they know that has generally been a problem, I think you can still download like a desktop app off of the website. And that seems to go better if your internet connection is kind of faulty.
Okay.
Very good question. Anything else there? Excellent. Let's move right along. So today, our first lesson, lesson 6, is a shorter lesson, and we're talking about careers. So this is something that we keep hearing from teachers, from community members. We want to hear more about careers. We want to hear more about careers. So we're going to start here with kind of an idea list. Okay, so think about some of the things you usually buy when you go to the store. You can just think in your head for a minute. When I go to the grocery store, I'm usually buying eggs and bananas because my kid eats like 5 bananas a day. So I know that that's something I always need to get. Is there something like that for you that just really comes to your head? Like, this is a product that I know that I like to buy a lot.
Edamame. I have to buy
Ooh.
like 10 bags of it every week because that's what my husband has for lunch. So
That's excellent. If you have other ideas, you can put them in the chat. But what we're going to do next, we're going to make a little kind of web about all of the jobs that go into making that product. So let's maybe decide on one product as a group. What do we think we want to think about careers involved in? Maybe not milk because they already started that one. Would you like to try edamame? Soybean products? Okay, so I want you to have access to the chat box if you can. And now I just kind of want to brainstorm as a group. What kind of jobs go into making edamame? So think about where it came from, who planted it, how it was harvested, if it was processed, anything that might happen at the store. And just go ahead and type ideas into the chat. Yes. Trucking and farming, a seed producer. Excellent. Packaging. Oh, yeah. Retail. We got a whole wide world of retail, don't we? And marketing in that. Absolutely. Quality testing, transportation. Oh yeah, if we need to apply any pesticides, anyone who works at the store to help stock the materials. Yes, fertilizer for the ground, really tying into lesson 2 there. Excellent. We might need to irrigate. Ooh, a pilot or a boat driver. Yeah. So we can think of a lot of really unique kinds of things, can't we? It's not all just, oh, and a chef too. Yeah, so there's lots of different kinds of things that can go into that. So here on this slide, they use cheese as kind of the idea. And you have the person who raises the crops to feed to the cows, and then the cows are taken care of by the farmer and from the veterinarian, and there's animal geneticists and inspectors, and then you get into all the food things. So you get into the trucking and into the marketing and all of those kinds of things as well. So that activity is just kind of to help kickstart that thinking process of what all goes into a specific product for students. And now you get to play the last level of the game. Okay, so if you can, open up Journey 2050 either on the website or on the app, and then click on level 6. It is a little bit shorter. What did anybody else get?
I'm a photographer too. It's a great hobby of mine outside of work. I mean, it's very true to life. So
Good. That's cool. Anybody else?
I got human resources.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, photographer with blue hair. I'm not sure about the blue hair deal,
Very
but I do like to take pictures, and my husband keeps asking me if I'm going to do anything with the pictures. I'm just kind of collecting them.
nice. So a lot of the things we got weren't directly related to production agriculture, it sounds like. And they tried to keep that kind of true to the state of the world. So in North America, farmers and ranchers represent about 2% of the population. So it's a little bit higher in Canada, a little bit lower in Iowa. And that is a little bit higher in Iowa specifically. I think it's about 5% of the population of Iowa that is directly employed by production agriculture, but like 20% of the population in Iowa is employed by agriculture. So all of those other things that you mentioned, being a veterinarian, being an environmental resources specialist, all of those things, they play a part in agriculture, a really big part, but it's not on a farm. So that's kind of a point they're trying to drive home there. So that's kind of the end of this lesson. It's very short, easy to plug into the end of another lesson. But again, the bullet points are there's lots of different kinds of careers available in agriculture, and you can play a part in the industry without necessarily being on a farm. And that's okay. And we need all of those people. Okay, another thing that you could do with this is the Ag Explorer. So this is done by FFA. You can Google Ag Explorer, it pops right up, but it just kind of goes more in depth on different kinds of diverse agricultural careers. Lots of really good information there if you'd like to take a look at that later. And again, some more enriching activity slides. I'm just leaving these in so that you have access to them later. And then we're at lesson 7. Okay. So we're going to start with a little bit of a video. All right.
Around a coming global food crisis and what we need to do to avoid it. How do we feed 9 billion people by 2050? Every conference, podcast, and dialogue around global food security starts with this question and goes on to answer it by saying, we need to produce 70% more food. The 2050 narrative started to evolve shortly after global food prices hit all-time highs in 2008. People were suffering and struggling. Governments and world leaders needed to show us that they were paying attention and were working to solve it. The thing is, 2050 is so far into the future that we can't even relate to it. And more importantly, if we keep doing what we're doing, it's going to hit us a lot sooner than that. I believe we need to ask a different question. The answer to that question needs to be framed differently. If we can reframe the old narrative and replace it with new numbers that tell us a more complete picture, numbers that everyone can understand and relate to, we can avoid the crisis altogether. I was a commodities trader in my past life, and one of the things that I learned trading is that every market has a tipping point. The point at which change occurs so rapidly that it impacts the world and things change forever. Think of the last financial crisis or the dot-com crash. So here's my concern. We could have a tipping point in global food and agriculture if surging demand surpasses the agricultural system's structural capacity to produce food. This means, at this point, supply can no longer keep up with demand, despite exploding prices, unless we can commit to some type of structural change.
Okay, so that was kind of an interesting video. So, okay, so discussion question on this one. You mentioned the capacity and as well as the supply and the demand to produce food. So how did that sit with you, or what was your takeaway from that? Or what might be some of those limiting factors that would be the max of the capacity? Could we say land, maybe? We have space issues. We can sit on that some more too. Okay, so we have another video. This is the Journey 2050 video about this topic. I'll pull this one up too.
Life on the farm 100 years ago looked vastly different compared to today, and it will continue to change to meet the needs of the world. Cutting-edge innovations in agriculture are being developed with a purpose to overcome the challenges we face in providing food, fuel, and fiber for a growing population. Some technologies are emerging, while others have been adopted globally. Here are a few examples. Have you seen any of these innovations in action? Autonomous robots. Agriculture requires a significant amount of manual labor. What do you think a robot could do? Autonomous pickers identify and pick ripe fruits and vegetables. Other specialized robots could also find and eliminate weeds and pests that damage crops. Agriculture sensors. When it comes to nutrient management, watering, pest management, and harvest, too early or too late doesn't cut it. When it's time to take action, high-tech sensors located in fields send alerts to farmers through an app on their phone. Aerial crop imaging. Aerial images taken with drones, satellites, and planes can help farmers map their fields and use the land to its greatest potential. Drones could perform crop monitoring, planting, and even spraying. Agriculture data systems. Say goodbye to notebooks. Farm data such as annual crop yield, market forecasts, soil nutrients, and weather can be collected and stored electronically to give farmers valuable information. Global positioning systems. GPS-based applications are being used for farm planning, field mapping, and more. The farmer is always present, but the tractor can drive itself to ensure perfect rows, while the farmer can program precise application of seed and fertilizer. Vertical and indoor farming. Growing crops up instead of out. Now that's a good idea. Vegetables and fruits tend to work the best in vertical farming, and it's ideal where land isn't available. It can even help to repurpose abandoned structures. Livestock health and activity monitors. The livestock industry utilizes technology to ensure animal health, safety, and welfare. For example, smart collars are used like a personal Fitbit, tracking daily activity, behavior, and health. Breath analysis allows farmers to evaluate potential health problems and diet. Thermal imaging and 3D cameras analyze an animal's body muscle and weight to advise the farmer when to sell their livestock. Fish farms and aquaponics. Specialized fish farms involve raising fish in tanks or enclosed ponds. Aquaponics systems are a unique way to grow fish and plants symbiotically. Waste from the fish is cycled through the system, serving as a source of nutrients to grow the plants. Insect protein. Meat, milk, and eggs are common sources of protein in our diet. But what about bugs as a source of protein? Insects are affordable and require fewer natural resources. Would you eat them? Cultured meat. Another alternative protein source is cultured meat. It isn't meat in the traditional sense, as it doesn't come from processing an animal. It's formed in a lab using animal cells, and tissues are engineered to form a meat alternative. New seed varieties. Genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, and CRISPR technology edit genes in plants to overcome a challenge, such as a disease. A lot of time and money is required to produce a GMO plant. It takes approximately 13 years to research and ensure its safety, and can cost around $136 million. After looking at these emerging technologies, it's easy to see that farms of the future may look very different than they do today. Will these technologies help feed the world? Surely they will make a difference, but each innovation must be understood for the benefits and limitations it brings. There is no one-size-fits-all solution in agriculture. Innovative technologies will be part of the solution to meet the needs of a growing population, but there are complex challenges that will need to be addressed. What technologies can be implemented in developing nations to secure a more sustainable food supply? How do consumer food choices impact the sustainability of our food supply? Most importantly, what can each of us do to be part of the solution? All of these challenges will require critical thinking and creative solutions. What ideas do you have to help feed the world?
All right. So that was the last video of Journey 2050. I hope you enjoyed it. So this lesson really reminds me of the National Ag in the Classroom lesson about high-tech farming, where students research a specific robot or high-tech piece of machinery and like make a poster about it, including some key facts about it. That almost exact same activity is in this lesson. So we're going to kind of fire through some of the things I talked about in the video, just to give you kind of an example of the things that they show. So we're talking about robots, sensors, drones, data collection systems, global positioning systems, vertical indoor farming, hydroponics, that kind of thing, different kinds of livestock monitors, which we've talked about at multiple different teacher workshops with the collars on dairy cattle. That'd be a perfect example. Fish farms and aquaponics, we've also seen some of those on teacher workshops. Insect protein, which we do have a cricket farmer here in Iowa, so we can put that feather in our cap. And then also cultured meat, as well as new seed varieties. So those are kind of the things they're focusing on in this lesson to give more background to the students about that. And then they have a discussion. Okay, which innovation do you think would be most impactful and why? So I'll open that up to you all. Did any one of those innovations stand out to you as something that you feel it would be particularly impactful?
Well, I have to admit that I was kind of in the dark about some of these expanding technologies that are coming about. I didn't know that the collars were out there, and the breath analysis and the video monitoring to see if they're making weight and ready for market. And I just am realizing that I have a lot to learn yet too.
That's totally fair. And things are coming out every day. So yeah, there's lots of interesting new things.
had the opportunity to like have a pork producer sit on a panel, and he talked about how everything he could do from his phone. So like he could order feed from his phone, he could check on like the heat, the temperature, the fans working, check the water levels, check all these different things. And it's all in an app on his phone, which was kind of crazy. And I just think about like the implications for time. Like he said that because everything was on here, he had more time to do like the business side of his production versus like being like in there double checking everything all the time. And he could make sure that he was saving some money on labor too. So like I guess that's kind of that ripple effect as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The time saver thing is something for sure. I heard a story about one farmer that had a drone, and they had it programmed so that the drone would fly around the fence lines so he could sit and drink his morning coffee and check to see if the fence was still okay. See if there were any breaks in the fence without leaving home. So we can be pretty cool with stuff like that. Okay, but not everything is always sunshines and rainbows. So what might be some pros and cons about using some of these different newfangled technologies?
I know a hot topic right now is kind of that whole alternative like meats and stuff. And so utilizing lab grown or vat grown or clean meat is also what it's been called. That's been, cells have been taken from like a cow and then cultured in a lab to grow things like ground beef. But so like the pros of that I've read about and heard about is that they could create large scales like of it in a small space and then help potentially over time reduce carbon emissions. But the con of it is that it's not established yet. So like if we think about our livestock production, specifically in cattle, they're already established. And so their carbon footprint right now is actually smaller than what it would be to start up a whole bunch of laboratories, or I wouldn't even say laboratories, they're more factories to create like ground beef.
I was thinking about that too. Having a staff laboratory to grow tissue, that seems like a very intensive and costly thing, at least right now. And who knows what it would be like in the future, but yeah.
Yeah, I think in 2013 is when they first started it, and 1 pound of ground beef was like $50 per pound. But today it's been like it's less than half of that of what it started at because they've become more efficient in it. It's still not attainable for everybody, but the reason why they're looking at it is because by 2050 there could be the increase of population means that more people are going to want to eat meat. We don't have necessarily enough meat where we need it to be to feed everybody that wants to eat meat. And so this could be an alternative way of doing it, or not alternative. I would say it's like in conjunction with what we do already with cattle.
Mm-hmm. I also think with that one and with the insects like crickets, you run into perception issues, which I feel like fits into that social sustainability part of the barrel. If people don't want to buy it, is it worth doing? And can you convince people that it's worth buying? That could be a con. Did anybody think of any other cons?
I put in the chat that I think the age of the producer, because right now the average age of a farmer is like what, 58? Are they adaptable to all this technology?
That is $1 million question, Jackie. I think you're totally right. On all these farm tours that I've been on, a lot of them are family farms. It's what, 97% family farms. And from what I see, dad or grandpa has the bank account, and it's the son or grandson that is looking at all these new technologies, but they aren't quite able to implement things right this minute. So that is a factor. Good discussion. Okay, and cost. Yes, I was looking for costs. Thank you, Trish. Yeah, a lot of these new robots and things can be very costly to implement. I visited a dairy a few years ago. Now prices might have changed at that point, but I think they had a robotic milker, and when they did the numbers, they thought it would take like upwards of 5 years to pay off. And that could be a little bit too steep, too rich for some people's blood. So that's definitely a factor for sure. Okay, so the activity that students would then get shown, they'd get a worksheet like this. They get assigned or choose one of those different new technologies, innovations in agriculture, and they work as a group to research it. So they're describing it, they might be drawing a picture, they're talking about the benefits, limitations, and then they're trying to look for news articles, videos, etc., to try to see it in action so they can describe that to their peers. Again, very similar to that National Ag in the Classroom lesson. And then afterward, they work as a class to vote on the 3 most promising technologies and innovations in agriculture. I thought about trying to figure out how to do that on here. That might be a little bit too technical, but feel free to drop if you have any really interesting ones. If you want to put in the chat, that'd be great. Okay. So here's kind of another thinking point on this. So thinking about some of these new technologies, thinking about some of these new products, do your decisions at the store, consumers like you, does that influence anybody? Does that influence the people who are stocking the stores, the producers? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Market need influences supply. Absolutely. I think at most commodity meetings, even Farm Bureau meetings that I've seen, that things like that are brought up. We're seeing that consumers want smaller packaging. We're seeing that consumers want something simple. We're seeing that consumers want something cheap. And you try to figure out, how do we meet that?
Even like, I remember Hy-Vee for a while, and some places might still have it, but they had like the ugly produce bin, where like they're imperfect. So it might be an avocado with like a bigger brown spot, or like a misshapen apple or something like that. And it was there for a while, and then all of a sudden it was gone. So I don't know if just they weren't selling, but I know that's a thing too.
Interesting. Yeah, it does influence that supply. Okay, and then here, we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but we've already had some of these conversations. So thinking about these different technologies and innovations, now different folks are going to have different perceptions on that, and that might be the same or different than the industry. Yeah, so Jamie says some people are really enjoying locally produced food. Yeah, absolutely. It's cool to like see if there's like a picture, even like this farmer made this thing for you. Absolutely. So with this section of the lesson, you can have more of those conversations with students about where they're sitting, where some other folks are sitting, and just kind of foster that communication a little bit. So to wrap up this lesson, we're really just talking about technology and innovation being used to benefit efficiency, right? That's kind of one of the bigger parts of that sustainability piece. Are we using our time efficiently, our money efficiently, our land efficiently, and can we use technology to do that in a way that makes sense? So that's the point there. All right, any questions before we go on to the last lesson? Excellent. So this last lesson, there is no game again, and this is very much leaning into project-based learning. Have any of you heard of project-based learning before? A couple yeses, a couple no's. You can just Google it. In fact, in this lesson on the website, there's a link to, I think it's just projectbasedlearning.org or something like that, where you can learn more about that system.
I guess like just a quick overview of it though, it's really having students do things in their community. So it's using real world problems that students then work to solve with their teacher and potentially community members as well. So that's kind of the point of project-based learning. Yeah. And then I guess at the same time as they're doing the project, they're learning things from science, that they're learning things that like their literacy and all the other state standards as well.
Excellent. And Jackie says experiential learning is about do, reflect, apply. I think that totally fits in here. Okay, so we're starting this lesson, this project, with the big question: how do we sustainably feed nearly 2 billion people by the year 2050? We're just going to kind of sit on that for a minute. And what are the challenges and opportunities for each idea proposed? So we can, if you were in a class, you could brainstorm ideas on the board. Maybe they're going to say things they saw in the game, like we're going to use our best management practices for nutrient application, or they're going to say we're going to use drones so we get accurate pictures of the field, or we're going to use robots because they're really cool. And you can discuss all of those different things. But then we want to look at these goals from the United Nations about development. So the lesson plan goes a little bit here into developed countries versus developing countries. I've heard some scuttles that that's not really the best terms to use anymore. So I kind of cut those slides for now, but that idea about different countries have different needs, and you can address a little bit of that in this section. So we're talking about not having poverty, not having hunger, being in good health, having quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, responsible consumption, sustainable cities, reduced inequalities, innovation and infrastructure, good jobs, renewable energy, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace and justice. So that's kind of a lot to digest, but that can be a helpful kind of frame for them to think about what things are really pressing. So here's kind of the outline for the project learning. So the call to action here would be we're going to have a huge increase in population. We need to figure out ways to sustainably feed that population. So from there, the students can think about one concern that they really want to focus on there. They can base that off of some of those UN standards. They can base that off some previous conversations, off the game, etc. And then it's going about a solution. So how can we do one realistic thing, impactful today here at home? What could we do? So it's structured in that way that there's a plan, but a lot of it is going to be driven by the students. It's driven by their interests, driven by the things that they find interesting, that they want to do, that they have the ability to do, and also where you're at in the world. So a school that's right on a river might have a different set of concerns or a different set of insight than a school in the middle of a city. And that's fine, and that's great. Sometimes it can be intimidating to hand that control over to the students, but it's a cool project, and you can really hand over the reins with that structure. Does anybody have any questions about that kind of? Okay, that lesson plan looks considerably shorter because it is like you're providing your students with information and then letting them run with it. So it's not as structured as some of these other lessons that have lots and lots of PowerPoint pages and things like that. What size group do you recommend doing the lessons with? That's a good question. I've had pretty good luck in between like 15 and 20. I don't think I've done any more than that at once. If you do have a bigger group than that, it might be helpful to have a second person that can help you just kind of go in between computers and help troubleshoot and monitor if you're having problems. That's a good question. So to wrap up kind of all of the lessons, sustainable development goals are interconnected and drive sustainability of our communities and our world. So the last lesson kind of ties it all very local. The first 7 are much more global. And then with that last lesson, it's kind of hammering home that idea that you have the power to make a difference. You have that ability just in your world. So some other housekeeping things. So there is the app. You can get on a phone or a tablet, School Edition Journey 2050. If you like the game, or if the students like the game and they want to keep playing, this Home Edition Farmers 2050 is much more like Farmville. It's not like set levels and then you cap out. You just keep playing as much as you want, if that makes sense. It's still realistic and educational, but it's not set up for classroom use. So there's kind of what the Farmers 2050 looks like. And this program has been sponsored by lots of different folks. It originated in Canada, as you might anticipate. They're also, because this is Canada, they are working on a little bit of updates right now, and they're adapting it to also be in French. So that's, if you do work with any French students, that could be helpful. I don't think we have as much of that south of the border here, but that is a new thing coming down the pike. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Catherine here to finalize some of the rest of the stuff.
Awesome. Chrissy, can you get, well, actually, I'll just tell you when to,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, if you can share. So I guess like just some quick housekeeping things as well. It's like, so where to start? Well, you already did it. I think most of you have already played through the game now, either continuing after the webinars here, or maybe continue. Maybe that's something you want to do right now. So play the game all the way through yourself. That's going to be really helpful, because then you know what questions students might ask. And then also it just gives you an idea of what everyone's going to go through. We do have a list of teachers. You can request that from myself or Chrissy, and we can get you that list so you can know, okay, what teachers are interested in this and who could I reach out to get started. And then maybe you can also start just like letting teachers know that you're providing that program. And then we do have a sample letter that we can also provide you to send to teachers. And Chrissy and I will do a follow-up email with everything here to make sure that you have all this information as well. And then just another reminder is that where you can find these lesson plans, you can find them on the Journey 2050, on the matrix, the National Ag in the Classroom matrix. I went on there and just searched Journey 2050 and found them there. Remember, you can also get to that matrix by going to our website and then clicking lesson plans and then clicking on the national lesson plans. And then, like I said, I just I just searched in there the Journey 2050. What's really nice about the matrix is that it actually sets it up by grade level. And so that kind of breaks it down like, okay, if I'm going to be teaching just middle school, these are going to be good lessons versus like the high school ones. So even though Journey 2050 was made for like kind of that middle school, it can be taken to high school as well. And then of course, you can also find the Journey 2050 lessons on the Journey 2050 website itself. The only thing is that those ones aren't broken up as like, here's middle school, here's high school. It's just, here they are. I do find it a little difficult to find these lesson plans. And so it took me a while, but I believe you have to have an account to find the lesson plans. Okay, how many of you have gone ahead and made your account? Go ahead and just like raise your hand. Yep, hands. Perfect, awesome. So you should be able to find those lesson plans. Do we need help going through on how to find those again, or? No? Okay. If you need help finding them, let me know. And we can definitely walk you through that. And then obviously we'll also have these links here for you and the files to the PowerPoint as well. And you can modify all of those PowerPoints. I mean, Chrissy did that. When I've looked at it for schools as well, I've also modified them. And then think about ways that you can encourage student conversation, even if that's a think, pair, share, or get in a small group and talk as well. Because this is, as we found, as we kept going through the game, we got more discussions going, and that's what our students will be doing as well. Other resources, we do have our tablets on our lending library. So if you find that there is a school that's not one-to-one or doesn't have iPads or tablets that they can check out, or even computers, let us know and we can get you those. They do come in a really big case, so they can get kind of expensive to ship. So we suggest probably scheduling something to either drop them off to you or meet you partway or something like that. Just because they're in a really nice case. Like, it's intense. It even charges them, which is really cool. And then we also have digital promotion material as well, if you would like some of that. And then curriculum alignment. They actually are starting to update this. So this is a little, Iowa isn't quite there yet. They all of the lessons are aligned with the Iowa standards, but they're slightly older standards. But don't worry, that's not a big deal, because Iowa, even though we have new standards, the new standards also align a little bit with the old standards. So if it's aligned with the old standards, it's going to be aligned with the new standards too. But if you need them specifically aligned with like the NGSS, let me know and I can get you that list for that classroom and help you out with that. Okay, the super important part, right? You're like, okay, I did this webinar, but I want the money, right? So I just want to talk to you about that reimbursement. So now that you've gone through this webinar, you are technically a certified Journey 2050 guest speaker. And so what that means is that you now can, you qualify for a $125 stipend for your Journey 2050 implementation into classrooms. And so what that means, it's a 2-hour or 2 class periods, and it's a single day or spread out over multiple days, and it's a stipend per class, not per school. So what I mean by that, so let's say, for example, Mr. Smith has 2 7th grade class periods that he wants you to come into, right? And so you come into those, so that's your first 2 hours. But now let's say Mr. Smith also now wants you to do his 8th grade class. That would qualify you for another $125. Okay. And I'll send you information about this too, but I just want to make sure I go over it here to answer any questions. So the other thing too is that reimbursement of expenses can be for mileage to and from the school and supplies, like consumable supplies for the Journey 2050 activities. So like when Chrissy was doing that activity where that water one, you can buy cups, or if you need to buy straws, you could use that $125 stipend for that as well. Great. And then Chrissy, can you actually go back? So I'm gonna have you click on that link, because this is a reimbursement stipend. And so what that means is that you will purchase the things, you'll do your mileage, and then you need to fill out this form. And so this form tells us that you have completed a Journey 2050 and you're looking to get reimbursed. And so when you, this link will get sent out to you, but when you click on that, the form looks like this. And so you'll fill out your name, your last name, and then the school you visited, and then your mileage. So distance to from your main office. So I want to clarify main office, because some of us still, like, you know, maybe you don't go to the office and it's closer for you to leave from your home to go to the school. So you would do whatever's closer, either your home, wherever you start, or the office, whatever's closest to your destination. Okay. And so you would just type that in there, and then you'll total it up. And then you're going to tell us about the visit. So who's the teacher, the grade level, and the subject, and then the teacher email address, and then the number of class periods. So how many class periods were you in? Do extension staff also register as a teacher? That's a great question. What do you mean by that, Jackie? Can you unmute and like help me out a little bit?
Yeah, I work for Extension, and I'm contracted through Farm Bureau to deliver ag in the classroom. So I'm not a teacher in the school, but I would be a teacher for this.
Yes.
So when I go to register.
Yes, so you would qualify. So
Okay.
when you fill out this form, it'd be like the teacher that you're going into the classroom with.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So your name is just you, and then the teacher's whoever's classroom you're going into. Good question. And then, you know, your how many students, and then what was the total amount of time that you were working with students? So if you are, you know, that's going to be the totals. Like say you went over multiple days, you know, in total, how many minutes? And then was your presentation over multiple days, just a yes or no? And then the part that I would kind of want to talk about is this attachment part. So both of these are optional. So if you purchase materials for this, we need to just like have a picture or a scan of your receipts, just so that way we know how much to reimburse you is the only thing. And so you'll just take a picture of those, put them up in, drag that file over, and it'll upload. And then if you have any pictures that you take during the event that you want to share with us, you can upload those pictures too, of like students doing things or things like that. And then you hit submit. And then after you hit submit, it'll tell us that, hey, there's a new form, and then we'll get that reimbursement to you. All right.
I would like to add one thing to this too. So all this data that's collected, the reason we want that is because the person who gave us the grant to give you money wants that. So in order for you to get the checks that we're offering, we have to report data back up. So we're not sitting on this, that's the reason that we're asking for that specifically.
Thank you, Chrissy. Any other questions about like the reimbursement part? And like I said, we'll send you a an email afterwards with all that information in it too, but I just want to make sure that I took some time to go over it. Yeah, and of course, if you have any questions, you can always email us and ask now too.
Yeah, we do have about 10 minutes left. Are there any burning questions before we leave? Wow. We just
When I
really,
registered on there, then I got like a teacher code. So is that code something that I will be inputting to get information to help with this, or how is that going to work?
that's a great question. I didn't talk about that. So the teacher code, when you first open up the Journey 2050 game, there's a space to put in that teacher code. So that would be if the classroom teacher has a specific code, all of their students could put that in. So the teacher gets all of their data from the game playing. So they can see their sustainability scores, and they can see their answers to the short answer questions, things like that. So your teacher code, I don't really foresee you needing to use. But if you are working with a classroom teacher, that could be a helpful thing for them. However, sometimes it can be interesting about how it reports, and they've been working on changing it too. So I would say that if you're going to use that teacher code, it would be best in a one-to-one school so that each student has their own computer. They're not making an account and logging back in. It just kind of goes by remembering who you are. So if you get on a different computer, it'll forget your score from the previous levels when you log back in. That's the caveat.
Okay.
Christy, I wonder if that changes if like they log into a computer. You know, like if they have a school login, the browser might remember them, but
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would ask the teacher. I wouldn't count on that, but I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah. Or even if they can leave that tab open for the duration of the program, that would just help keep it, but it is what it is a little bit.
Okay, so I basically won't need to use the teacher code then.
No, you probably won't.
Okay.
Any other questions? Excellent. Okay, well, if you think of anything, please do email Catherine or I. We'll be sending up a follow-up email with paperwork and links and all that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, let us know if you have any questions later.
I would say look for that email probably, do you think next week, Chrissy?
That might be a good, yeah, Monday.
Yeah, probably Monday, because I know we're gonna like edit some of the videos and things like that and everything, so. Just realize it won't come right away after we're done here. Be patient with us, please.
All right, thank you
Okay.
for your time.
And I
Thank
still
you.
need Tuesdays, Chrissy.
What was that?
I still need Tuesdays where I wasn't able to attend. So
Yes, I will definitely send you that link when we get it uploaded.
that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.